So I think it's time we start talking about what happened to your parents, like the truthful version.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Why? Because listen to me. This is the only chance you're going to have to tell us the truth. I can't tell you what we know, but we know you're not telling us the truth. We know your parents are no longer with us. Okay? And we know the reason why. Okay? You need to tell the truth. Listen. You need to tell the truth about what happened and just tell us why it happened. Okay?
On July 7, 2021, a soft-spoken 23-year-old named Chandler Halderson walked into a Wisconsin police station to report his parents missing. He told detectives they had gone to their family cabin for the holiday weekend and simply vanished. But here, where it gets strange, within 24 hours, police would realize that Bart and Krista Halderson never actually left their suburban home, and the horrifying truth about where they were was hiding right in plain sight. On paper, Chandler Halderson was the son every parent dreamed of raising, an Eagle Scout, an advanced sustainable engineering student, and most impressively, a young man who had just secured a highly competitive, remote position working for Elon Musk's SpaceX. His parents, 50-year-old Bart and 53-year-old Krista, were incredibly proud. They had built a beautiful, comfortable life in the quiet suburb of Windsor, Wisconsin. They were a tight-knit family, well-liked by neighbors, with absolutely no history of conflict. So when Chandler called family members in a panic, claiming his parents had packed up their vehicle, hooked up their trailer, and driven off into the northwoods of Wisconsin with another couple, everyone assumed the worst. Had they been run off the road? Were they held hostage in a remote cabin with no cell service? The community rallied. Local news outlets broadcasted Bart and Krista's faces across the state. Chandler sat on camera, his voice trembling, pleading for anyone with information to come forward. He even went door to door, looking his neighbors dead in the eye, politely asking if their security cameras had captured his parents' car leaving the neighborhood. But as detectives began digging into the timeline of that July 4th weekend, the puzzle pieces didn't just fail to fit, they dissolved entirely. The vehicle and trailer Chandler claimed his parents drove away in, they were still parked in the garage. To understand the tragedy of this case, you have to understand the people Bart and Krista were. Bart Halderson was a certified public accountant. In the professional world, he was known as a meticulous man who took great pride in structure, precision, and financial responsibility. Friends described him as a devoted father who wanted nothing more than to see his two sons succeed. Krista Halderson was the emotional anchor of the home. She worked as a customer service representative, a job that matched her naturally warm, empathetic personality. Neighbors recalled her as the kind of person who always remembered birthdays, greeted everyone with a genuine smile, and fiercely protected her family. Together, Bart and Krista had built what looked like the quintessential American dream. They were financially stable, lived in a pristine home, and poured everything they had into their children. Their oldest son, Mitchell, had already moved out and established a successful, independent life. Now, their youngest, Chandler, was seemingly on the exact same trajectory. Chandler was still living at home, but given his massive career breakthroughs, his parents were more than happy to support him. He was allegedly finishing up his degree at Madison Area Technical College, working a job at an insurance firm, and getting ready to move to Florida for his dream job at SpaceX. Bart and Krista didn't just love their son, they admired his ambition. They treated him with absolute trust. But that trust would ultimately become a weapon, because while Bart and Krista were celebrating their son's bright future, a dark reality was unfolding right under their noses. On June 30th, the atmosphere inside the Halderson home shifted from celebratory to tense. For weeks, Chandler had been complaining about a massive bureaucratic mix-up at his college. He claimed the school was withholding his transcripts, refusing to pay him for his student worker hours, and stalling his onboarding process with SpaceX. Bart, being an accountant who handled official documents for a living, grew frustrated by the school's apparent incompetence. He decided to intervene. Bart spent the afternoon calling Madison Area Technical College, trying to reach a specific administrator named Omar Job, whom Chandler had been emailing for months. On the evening of June 30th, Bart finally got through to the college's main office. He asked to speak to Omar Job. The receptionist paused, confused. There was no one employed at the college by that name. In fact, the school's database didn't show any record of Chandler Halderson being enrolled in engineering courses at all. At 11:15 p.m. that night, Bart sent Chandler a text message that would set a lethal countdown into motion. It read, "I'm ready to go whenever you are." Bart had arranged for the two of them to drive to the college campus together the very next morning to sort out the mess in person. July 1st, 2021.
If you were able to capture the road or my house? Did it capture anything on?
We don't know. We don't know. They just took a copy of everything, and so we're hoping.
Why didn't it go lines?
Yeah, and it's all.
Yeah.
Around 2:00 p.m., a neighbor's security camera captures Chandler backing his father's vehicle into the garage. At 4:30 p.m., Krista Halderson returns home from work, her car pulling into the driveway. It is the last time she is ever seen alive. By the next morning, July 2nd, both Bart and Krista's cell phones begin sending bizarre text messages to relatives, claiming they are heading up north to the cabin and will have poor cell service. But investigators would later note something terrifying. Those text messages were being sent from towers located just blocks away from their own suburban home. The tension was building, and the illusion was about to fracture. When Chandler officially reported his parents missing on July 7th, detectives immediately launched a massive search. But from the very first hour, Chandler's behavior set off internal alarms for seasoned investigators. While interviewing Chandler at the kitchen table, detectives noticed he had a minor injury on his foot. Chandler casually explained that he had been playing with the family dog, who accidentally broke a glass coffee table, causing him to cut himself. But when detectives walked through the house, they noticed the coffee table was perfectly intact. Then came the vehicle checks. Chandler insisted his parents left with another couple in a separate car. Yet, when police checked the family's property, they found Bart's beloved truck and their recreational trailer completely undisturbed. Neighbors were interviewed next, and their statements completely blew Chandler's timeline apart. They hadn't seen Bart or Krista all weekend, but they had seen Chandler. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's house showed Chandler doing something incredibly unusual in the scorching July heat. He was repeatedly backing his car up to the front door of the house late at night, loading heavy items into the trunk. Detectives immediately pulled Chandler's digital records, and what they found was a digital trail of pure panic. They discovered that Chandler had spent the last 2 years operating a massive, highly sophisticated deception campaign. He had never gone to college. He had flunked out semesters prior. He didn't work for an insurance company, and SpaceX had never heard his name. To pull this off, Chandler had created dozens of fake Gmail accounts, pretending to be college deans and corporate recruiters. The motive was clear. His father was hours away from discovering that his son was a pathological fraud. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Chandler's own girlfriend, Catherine. She was entirely innocent and desperately trying to help find his parents. When detectives interviewed her, she mentioned that Chandler had been acting strange over the weekend. On July 3rd, he had unexpectedly shown up at her family's rural property in Cottage Grove, Wisconsin. He claimed he was there to look for missing parts for his car. But Catherine did something that changed the entire trajectory of the case. She checked her phone. But when Catherine opened her phone and handed it to detectives, the entire narrative violently reframed into a horrific homicide investigation. Catherine showed police her Snapchat app. On July 3rd, knowing Chandler was out running errands, She had opened the Snapchat map feature out of pure curiosity to see where he was. The app had pinged his phone's exact location. She had taken a casual screenshot of it. The location wasn't an auto parts store. It was deep, dense, isolated marshland on the edge of her family's rural property. On July 8th, a tactical search team descended on that exact Snapchat coordinate. Walking through the thick brush, investigators noticed a swarm of flies near a pile of freshly cut branches. When they cleared the brush, they made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the department. It was the dismembered torso of Bart Halderson. He had been shot in the back with a rifle. Suddenly, Chandler's innocent, clean-cut persona shattered. He was arrested that very day for providing false information to police. But the nightmare was only halfway over. Krista Halderson was still missing. Detectives returned to the family home with forensic teams and chemical sprays that detect hidden blood. The house lit up like a Christmas tree. Blood was found in the basement, on the stairs, and in the garage. But it was the family living room that held the most macabre secret of all. Forensic teams dismantled the wood-burning fireplace. Inside the ash and soot, they discovered over 200 tiny, charred bone fragments and human teeth. Chandler hadn't just killed his parents to cover up his lies. He had spent days trying to incinerate their remains right inside the home he grew up in. Days later, Krista's severed remains were located miles away, discarded near the Wisconsin River. In January 2022, the state of Wisconsin went to trial against Chandler Halderson. He was facing 8 felony charges, including first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse and hiding a corpse. The prosecution's strategy was devastatingly effective. They didn't just present the physical evidence. They systematically dismantled Chandler's entire life piece by piece in front of a packed courtroom. They called college representatives who confirmed his fraud. They called tech experts who showed how he fabricated the SpaceX job offer letter down to the fake corporate logo. The defense team faced an impossible task. The evidence against Chandler was an absolute mountain of digital and forensic data. In a highly unusual move, Chandler's defense lawyers chose to give an opening statement that lasted less than 2 minutes. They called 0 witnesses to the stand. They didn't even have Chandler testify in his own defense. They simply argued that the state's case was entirely circumstantial and that no one actually saw Chandler commit the physical acts of murder. But the jury didn't buy it. After a grueling 10-day trial filled with stomach-churning forensic testimonies, the jury went back to deliberate. It took them just over 2 hours to return a unanimous verdict, guilty on all 8 counts. At his sentencing hearing in March 2022, the judge did not hold back, calling Chandler's actions completely depraved and devoid of human empathy. He sentenced Chandler to 2 consecutive life terms in prison without the absolute possibility of parole. Chandler tried to fight the verdict from behind bars. His legal team filed multiple appeals, claiming that the heavy focus on his lying prejudiced the jury against him. But the justice system stood firm. On November 26, 2025, the appellate court flatly rejected his claims, stating the evidence of his fraud was completely intertwined with his motive. Finally, on June 16, 2026, the Wisconsin Supreme Court officially denied his final request for review, slamming the door on his legal avenues for good. Chandler Halderson will die in a maximum security prison. When a case this shocking makes national headlines, it is easy to get lost in the bizarre details of the perpetrator's lies, the digital trail, and the dramatic courtroom twists. But we must never forget that at the center of this suburban nightmare are 2 real, innocent people who paid the ultimate price for their unconditional love. Bart and Krista Halderson weren't killed because of a gang war, a robbery, or a sudden burst of passion. They were killed simply because they were good parents. They were killed because they cared enough to hold their son accountable, to help him grow, and to guide him into adulthood. They loved Chandler unconditionally. and he rewarded that love with the ultimate betrayal. The community of Windsor still carries the scars of that July weekend, remembering Bart and Krista not for how their lives ended, but for the warmth, kindness, and decency they brought to everyone around them. It leaves us with a chilling reminder that sometimes the deepest dark can hide behind the most polite, ordinary smile. Do you believe justice was served? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching Suburban Homicide. If you found this deep dive respectful and informative, please hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. Until next time, stay safe.